तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः। श्री चैतन्य मनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूपकदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकं। वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरु श्रीयुतः पदकमलं श्रीगुरुन् वैष्णवांश्च श्रीरूपं साग्रजातां सहगणा रघुनाथां तं सजीवम् साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनासहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधा कृष्णपदां सहगणा ललिता श्रीशाखान्वितं च हे कृष्णकरुणा सिन्धु दीनबन्धो जगत्पते गोपेश गोपिकान्त राधाकान्त नमोस्तुते। तप्तकाञ्चन गौराङ्गी राधे वृन्दावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये। पञ्चकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपासिन्धुभ्येव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर। हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। Hare Krishna. I'd like to welcome all of you to our Gita classes. Whoever can keep your cameras on, please do feel free to keep them on. It's always wonderful to see you all. We are on chapter 2 of the Bhagavad Gita, and so far in this chapter we have discussed the first two sections of this chapter. The first section of this chapter is Guru, the first 10 verses. And last time we began the second section of this chapter, which is identity, verses number 11 to 30. So we'll continue the discussion of the identity from where we left off. If for those who were not there last time, and for the benefit of all those who were there, we'll just quickly talk about what we spoke last time. So we were talking about the discussion of Krishna and Arjun about the fact that we are not the physical body, but we are spirit souls. And then we began to talk about the different qualities of the Atma that Krishna is enumerating in the Gita through the different verses. And the last time we spoke about three qualities of the Atma, which Krishna enumerates and talks about in the Gita. The first quality is the quality of individuality. The Atma is individual in each of us. The Atma is individually present. And from that, we learned that we cannot compare ourselves to somebody else, because each one of us is a unique creation of God. And then we spoke about the Atma being indestructible. That is the second quality. And then we spoke about the quality of fearlessness that comes out as a result of understanding that we are indestructible. And after that, we spoke about a third quality, which is the Atma is eternal. And we spoke about how the understanding that the Atma is eternal helps us overcome lamentation. It brings hope into our life, and it helps us prioritize our future plans, our future destinations, and accordingly live our present lives. So these are three qualities we spoke about of the Atma. And now we will go further and discuss the remaining 6 qualities of the Atma that Krishna is speaking about to Arjun. And these 6 qualities again are as fascinating as the 3 qualities we spoke last time, if not more. And there is a lot of learning coming your way. So we'll just chant this verse of the Gita together. This is verse number 24. Achedyoyam adhayoyam akledyo sosha evacha nitya sarvagata stano achaloyam sanatanaha. So here, Krishna is focusing on another very beautiful quality of the Atma, which is achalaha. The word achalaha means immovable. This is the 4th quality of the Atma. The soul cannot be moved by anything. You cannot push out the soul. You cannot move out the soul physically because it is spiritual in nature. So now, what does the fact that the Atma is immovable teach us in our lives? And what is the quality that we can cultivate by understanding that the Atma is immovable? The quality that we can cultivate is a quality of determination. We are all wanting to do something in our lives, isn't it? And it takes determination to do anything in life. Whatever you want to do in your life, you need to be determined for it. Otherwise, you can't do it. One day, a farmer's donkey fell into a well. It was a deep well, but it was an empty well, no water at all. And the donkey was trapped inside the well. And the donkey had no idea how to come out. And the farmer had no idea how to pull the donkey out. Now imagine if a donkey falls in the well, how will you pull the donkey out? There is like no logical way to pull the donkey out. So the farmer tried so many different things to pull the donkey out. Somehow he just couldn't figure out. And finally he realized that I have to just let the donkey go. So what he did was, he said, anyway, I don't want my donkey to die so long and, miserable death. I will only give him a decent burial. So he decided that he'll just cover the well with, mud and sand and all that, and he will bury the donkey, basically. So he started throwing sand from top, and the sand would fall on the donkey's body, isn't it? The donkey realized what's happening. And every time a huge heap of mud would fall on its back, the donkey would shake its body, and throw the mud out. And it would step on the mud. And then he threw more mud on it, he would shake its body, throw the mud out, and stamp on the mud. Slowly, the donkey started rising. And eventually, a point came when the donkey just stepped out of the well. And this man was shocked to see his donkey walk out like that, The world is going to throw a lot of mud at you. And especially when you are going through the down phases of your life, when you are in the most miserable situation of your life, the world is going to throw a lot of mud at you. And therefore, that is the time when you learn from this donkey, shake that mud up and stand on the mud and come out. A lot of times when people throw mud at us, or when we are at the low phase of our life, we just give up. We give up because we lose hope. We give up because we think that I am finished. We give up because we don't understand that we are achalaha. The soul cannot be pushed around. The soul cannot be moved around like that. It's immovable. And when you understand that, you suddenly acquire great determination, because nobody can push you to do something that you don't want to do. If you decide that you want to do something, nobody can push you to stop doing it, right? So this determination is so important. And in today's world, people just don't know how to say no. Of course, you and I struggle with that sometimes. but I struggle with that at least in a positive way. People just don't know to say no, even if the worst thing is happening to them. If people are exploiting them, people are taking advantage of them, people just don't know how to say no. Why? Because they're not able to be, they're not sure that they can't be pushed around. They feel that anybody can come and push me and go. Somebody comes and push me this side, somebody comes and pushes me that side. I'm like just being moved around here and there. Interestingly, that's what exactly happens to us. One person, a friend of ours, tells us, "I'm going to science, so I also go to science." Then our parents tell us, "Become a doctor," then I also become a doctor. So basically, the world has been pushing us from our childhood. And the way the world has been pushing us, we have been being pushed also. We agree to be pushed, basically. And that's simply because we don't understand the power of the soul being achalaha. immovable. And the moment we understand how powerful we are, the moment we understand how immovable we are, we suddenly become very much aware of our own greatness. And so many great people in the past, like Chanakya. Chanakya was insulted by this king, and Chanakya took a vow that he will destroy the king and his entire empire. Now, Chanakya was a poor Brahmana. Now, if a poor Brahmana takes a vow that I'll destroy a king, where will he even achieve anything? It's just impossible for a poor Brahmana to overthrow a king. But Chanakya was so determined that this king doesn't deserve to rule. He was a tyrant. And Chanakya, by his determination, he just created such a massive revolution that even today, the empire that was built at that point is known as it was known as a golden era of the Chandragupta dynasty when Chanakya helped. And that's the kind of power that determination gives us. And that determination comes from the knowledge that we are the spirit soul and not the physical body. The fifth quality of the Atma Krishna speaks about is aprameyasya. This is the sixth quality of the Atma. The word aprameyasya means immeasurable. We weigh. Some of us weigh a lot. One guy went to a railway station, and he was so frustrated in that railway station that he was banging that. In these railway stations, you have these machines which weigh things, weigh people, right? So this machine somehow it is not working properly, and no matter who was standing on it, the weight was coming zero. So one person, he got really frustrated. His son stood, weight came zero. He stood, weight came still zero. He began to bang the machine because he felt the machine. In India, when things don't work, you bang somewhere, right? Like I remember a few years back when iPods were very commonly used. In our ashram, there was one very elderly monk, and somehow somebody gave him an iPod, and he used it for a couple of years, and then the iPod stopped working. Some strange thing, it didn't work. And one day, one of our monks saw him doing something unbelievable. He was banging the iPod on the floor, trying to make it work. Imagine, he was used to the old tape recorders. You beat it and it starts working again. So he was trying that with an iPod. Anyway, the point is that this fellow was so frustrated that the weighing machine is not working. He's trying to bang it and get it to start. We are all so concerned about our weights. We are all so concerned about our physical appearances. We are also concerned about the way we look, right? Interestingly, the Atma is immeasurable. What is the meaning of immeasurable? This problem of weights don't exist in the Atma at all. So your body may be heavy, but your Atma is light. And the interesting thing that Krishna speaks about, the quality of the Atma, he calls it as aprameyasya. That means the Atma is so insignificantly small. The explanation that is given in the scriptures about the size of the Atma is this. It says that if you take the tip of the hair and you cut the tip of the hair into 100 parts, and you take one part of that 100 parts of the tip of the hair and you cut it into another 100 parts, that 1/10,000 the tip of the hair is the size of the Atma. What an insignificant existence we all have, isn't it? We may occupy a body which is 80-90 kilos, but actually what is our existence? We are so insignificant, immeasurable. If somebody wants to see us also, you can't see us. We are so insignificant in this world. One time, Srila Prabhupada was talking to one of his disciples, and Srila Prabhupada was um, wanting to teach this devotee a lesson in humility. So this particular person, his name is Tamal Krishna Maharaj, who was one of our leaders in ISKCON when ISKCON just began. And he was the president of one of the ISKCON temples in America. And somehow he had some kind of attitude issue at that particular day, and Srila Prabhupada wanted to bring it up. So in one lecture, Prabhupada actually addressed it publicly. And this is what he said, very interesting. He said, the entire creation of the Lord is divided into two parts, 3 by 1. 3/4 is the spiritual world and 1/4 of creation is the material world. And within this one part, the material world, there are millions of universes, just like mustard seeds in a mustard bag. If you have seen a bag of mustard seeds, millions of mustard seeds in it, right? Similarly, millions of universes in this one particular material world, 1/3 of creation. And in these millions of universes, we are living in one of the universes. And within this universe, there are millions of planets. And within the millions of planets is one planet, which is the Earth. And on this planet, there are hundreds of countries. And one country is United States of America. And in this country, there are hundreds of cities. And one city is San Francisco. And in this city, there are hundreds of locations. And one location is Boulevard. And in this one location, there are hundreds of homes. And there is one small place called ISKCON Temple. And in this ISKCON Temple, there is a man named Tamal Krishna. And he thinks he's the boss of the universe. Imagine, what a way to put it, isn't it? and that's exactly how all of us think. Somehow, we tend to think that we're something great. We tend to think that we're something great. And we can control people. We can control everyone around us. Somebody wants to control the country. Somebody wants to control the world. Somebody wants to control, an organization. Somebody wants to control a family. If you get nothing else, you control a dog. You catch a dog and you tie it up and you control it. So everyone wants to control someone, And the idea of humility is when you understand that you are nothing. You are insignificant. Newton, when he was inventing his theory named calculus, he was standing in front of the ocean, and in front of this massive ocean, he saw thousands of these pebbles and stones thrown out from the ocean. Thousands of stones being, coming out from the ocean. He realized, where is all this coming from? Such a huge creation of God. And in front of the creation, he felt insignificant. He felt insignificant in front of the creation of God. And that is when he went back and named his theory as calculus. The word calculus means humbled. That's what he experienced after getting in touch with something that was so powerful and so great. So all of us, we think we are big. But the reality is that we should understand that all of us are God's creations. And we all have a long way to go to understand our connection with God. And that's what the whole idea of Govardhan Leela is. Govardhan Leela is a pastime where Indra considered himself to be great, considered himself to be powerful. And Krishna, by lifting the little Govardhan hill on his little finger, he proved to Indra that you are insignificant. Every one of us need continuous reminders from creation, from the universe, from God, from saintly people, from friends, that we are nothing. When we actually realize that we are nothing, when we actually realize that we are so insignificant, we will become a little more grounded. We'll become a little more humble. and we'll become a little more, we will see ourselves a little lesser than what we think we are. And that is so important for our personal spiritual progress. So this idea of humility is so very important to understand. So here, the next verse, Krishna speaks about, so in this particular verse, he speaks of another quality again. This is the sixth quality Krishna speaks about. So if you notice the words, there is a word here called Sarvagataha Stanur. What is the meaning of Sarvagataha? The word Sarvagataha means all-pervading. This is the sixth quality of the soul. The sixth quality of the soul is that it is Sarvagataha. Now, there are two ways to understand the meaning of this word Sarvagataha. One way to understand the meaning of the word Sarvagataha is that the souls are present everywhere. In every nook and corner of the universe, you find souls. Like right now, in your room that you're sitting in, you might think that you're the only person in the room. You're wrong. There are actually millions of people in the room. Don't be scared. That there are millions of living entities in the room right now, right? How many insects, how many bacteria, how many viruses, how many small entities are there in the room? And we think that we own the space, but actually, how can we even think that we own the space? There are so many living entities in the space. That's the meaning of the word Sarvagataha. It is explained in the sun. Sun, there is a bacteria. In fire, there is bacteria. There is something known as fire bacteria. That means this bacteria survives inside fire. So that means in every planet, including the sun and the moon, living entities exist. Life exists. And that's what the meaning of the word Sarvagataha is. So when we know that the soul is all-pervading, we become very conscious of the existence of the soul. So when we understand that life is everywhere, we become very conscious of its existence. Like for example, this very beautiful story of a hunter named Mrigari. So Mrigari was a very powerful hunter. He was hunting animals, half killing animals, not even killing them fully, And he derived great joy in torturing animals and killing animals. And this was his means of livelihood. At one point, Narada Muni happened to see these half-killed animals, and he felt so bad for these animals dying in pain. He went to Mrigari and he spoke to him, and he told him that, are you not scared of what the consequence of this action, what you're going to do is? Mrigari said, I'm just doing it for my family. Narada Muni said, even if you're doing it for your family, do you know what kind of hellish situation is waiting for you in the future? Mrigari said, how will I know? Narada Muni then and there gave Mrigari a vision of what is waiting for him after his death. Mrigari actually saw with his own eyes the hellish suffering that is waiting for him. And that is when Mrigari actually went through a heart transformation. He was bewildered and shocked. Mrigari took a vow that he will not kill a single animal from then. And Mrigari was inspired by Narada to start chanting the holy names of the Lord. And he became a great devotee of the Lord. Many years later, Narada Muni came back again, just visiting that particular place. And he wanted to visit his disciple, Mrigari. And Narada Muni, when he came with his friend Parvata Muni, both of them were walking towards where Mrigari used to be. Suddenly, from one corner, Mrigari saw his guru coming towards him. He ran to his guru. And while he was running towards his guru, he stopped right in between. He got down on his knees. He took out a shawl from his neck and he began to wipe away the floor because he saw a bunch of ants on the floor and he didn't want to stamp on them. He was just, brushing them aside so that the ants can be on one corner of the road. And then he went ahead. Narada Muni was amazed at the transformation. Here is a man that was half killing animals and deriving great pleasure in half killing animals. And that same man now, he's not even wanting to harm small insignificant ants. And that is what sarvagataha means. That is the understanding of the fact that I do not want to cause pain to any entity in this world for my pleasure, right? That's what the meaning of the word sarvagata. That's what the meaning of the word conscious is. So when we try to live a life that is based on being conscious of the presence of life everywhere, we become conscious of not becoming harbingers of pain to others. Of course, there are a lot of people in this world who decide to live a vegetarian life, not eating meat that causes harm, pain to so many animals, and all that. But you know what the interesting thing is? Though they are vegetarians on the table, that means the food they eat is they are vegetarians, but the amount of pain they cause other human beings is unbelievable. They may be vegetarians in their eating habits, but in their speaking habits, they are violent. They are absolutely non-compassionate. So, your eating habits are highly compassionate, but if your speaking habits are not compassionate, it's still going to cause pain to somebody, isn't it? So non-violence is not just at the level of eating. Non-violence is at the level of emotional non-violence also. Non-violence is at the level of not wanting to be violent to anybody verbally, physically, even mentally. And that's what the idea of the word non-violence is. That's what the idea of the concept of compassion is. So when we become conscious of the fact that everyone is a living entity, the living entity sarvagataha, the living entity is everywhere. When we become conscious of the fact that the living entity is everywhere, we become very conscious of respecting life. We become very conscious of respecting every form of life, no matter in which country, no matter in which race, no matter in which creed, no matter in what part of society. Life is precious. And to the extent I'm conscious, to that extent I'm respectable, I'm respectful. The next quality that Krishna speaks about in the Gita is sthanuhu, or this is verse number 24, unchangeable. This is the seventh quality of the soul, unchangeable, sthanuhu. So what is the meaning of unchangeable? Let us understand it. The body goes through 9 changes. There is something known as nisheka. Nisheka means impregnation of life. Then there is known as garbha, which means gestation of the fetus. Then there is known as janma, which means the birth of the child. Then there is something known as balya, infancy. Then there is kaumara, childhood. Then there is yauvana, youth. Then there is vayomadhye, which means middle-aged, adulthood. Then there is jara, old age. And then finally, there is mrityu, which is death. So these 9 steps, nisheka garbha janmani, balya kaumara yovanam, vayomadhyam jara mrityur, iti avasthas tanur nava. These are the 9 ages or 9 stages of the body. All of us go through these stages. All of us go through, these transformations and changes in life, basically. There was a guy who was going for surgery, and the surgeon who was going to do surgery to him, he had a garland in his hand. This man was very, very bewildered and intrigued. Why does a surgeon have a garland in his hand? So he was very disturbed. He asked him, "Can you please tell me why you have a garland in your hand?" The surgeon said, "If the surgery is successful, I'll put the garland on myself. If the surgery is not successful, I'll put on the garland on you." So change is a part of life. You can't help it. A body changes constantly. So every aspect of life is about adapting to change, rather. Constantly, life is changing. And the interesting thing is that in this constantly changing life, in this constantly changing situations of the world, most people want to play it safe. A lot of people in this world don't want change to happen to them. They hate change because change makes us insecure, isn't it? We don't want anything to change in our lives. We want it to be same. And that is why now that the coronavirus pandemic has come to at least a particular situation of stability now in India. Problem now is that nobody wants to change. People don't want to get out of their homes, basically. The offices are having such a massive problem getting people from home to office. So once, initially people didn't want to sit at home. Now people don't want to get out of home. So the nature of human being is that we are averse to change. We don't want changes to happen, but changes will happen, and they are bound to happen. Like there was a farmer who went to a veterinary doctor, and he told the veterinary doctor, "I have a very lazy bull. He never gets up and works." So the doctor gave this farmer a pill. Give this bull the pill, and he will work alone. The next day, the farmer came running back to the doctor, and he said, "The bull is running so fast that I can't catch up with him." He said, "Give me also a pill, so I will run along with the bull." So when change happens, we are so scared that I can't keep up with that change, and therefore I am averse to change. So the fear is that if certain things change in our life, it may be so drastic that I can't cope up with it. So this gives us a tremendous amount of anxiety. But now, here is a very interesting thing, that understanding that the Atma is Thanuhu, the understanding that the Atma is unchangeable helps us with. You know what it helps us with? And this is very interesting. Externally, everything is changing around us. Externally, everything is changing around us. People are changing around us. Our physical bodies are changing so much. Situations around us is changing so much. The nature of human beings is changing so much. Rules and regulations are changing so much. Weather conditions are changing so much. Practically everything around us is changing. But you know what the most amazing thing is? There is one thing that never changes. And that one thing that never changes is not outside of you, it's inside of you. The fact that the Atma is unchangeable, Sthanuhu, is a big relief, actually. Because everything around us changes, we need to hold on to something that doesn't change. And that one thing that will never change, the safest thing to hold on to, is the fact that we are the spirit soul, the Atma. And the Atma is unchangeable. Interestingly, when you talk to anybody about their childhood, they have such fascinating memories, isn't it, about their childhood? They show you photos of when they were just born, babies, and then a few months old, and then they'll show you a baby which is like 1-2 years old. And when you look at that baby and the fellow who is standing in front of you, it's impossible to recognize the same person. It's impossible. I mean, probably the mother and father may be able to recognize, but even the fellow himself won't be able to recognize. This is me, unless somebody tells him, of course. But the most amazing thing is, when we look at our childhood photos, we still feel I am the same person. Nothing has changed in me. We still feel I still have the same desires, eating those fluffy pink things, basically, playing on the merry-go-rounds and doing all the funny things that we used to do in our childhood. Of course, as you go older, if you try all those stunts, then your bones break or you experience some kind of problems. Don't try it. But at least the desire is there to do that, isn't it? Because there is something inside you that never changes. And that is the real you. And that is the fact that we are the spirit soul. Externally, everything changes, but internally, nothing changes. And therefore, when things change on an external level, and we try to adapt to those changes on an external level, it doesn't feel normal. It doesn't feel good. It doesn't feel natural. The better way is that let change come from within us. Change, or rather, any kind of transformation that originates from within us, it's more closest to who we are. It is more natural to who we are because it is coming from a source that is so powerful. It is coming from a source that is so stable. And it is coming from a source that is Sthanuhu, unchangeable. And that is the essence of change management. Somebody wants to know how to deal with changes in life. The next verse that we'll talk about, which brings us the next quality that Krishna is going to introduce here, is Avyaktoyam achintyoyam avikaryoyam uchyate tasmad evam viditvainam nanu sochutum arhasi. So in this particular verse, Krishna is bringing out another quality of the Atma. This is the eighth quality of the Atma, which is Avyakta. Of all these words that is being used here, Avyakta means invisible. We cannot see the soul from a microscope. You cannot see the soul with the naked eye, obviously. This gives us a very important impetus in our lives, and that is to cultivate faith. Srila Prabhupada went to MIT Boston to give a talk, and he began his talk with a very interesting note. He said, there are so many departments in MIT. Where is the department to study the Almighty? We're studying everything in the universe, isn't it? But we're not studying the source of the universe. We're not studying the fact that we are the spirit soul within us. So there are so many researches that have been conducted in the past, scientific researches, that exactly try to study the point of death. What exactly happens during the time of death? But no one has been able to exactly point out what is that one thing that changes, that causes a person from this phase to that phase. A lot of people say, can you prove that the soul exists? I want to see the soul. Show me the soul. And that is the most powerful impetus to help us understand and cultivate faith in our lives. When one can see something, anyone can accept it, isn't it? When one can't see anything, when one can't see something and then you accept that I am the soul, to accept Krishna as God, that is a challenge to our faith. As soon as we understand that the quality of the soul is invisible, there is an appeal that is made to us to put faith. Our faith obviously is not blind faith. It is reasonable faith. We believe that there is a soul in our bodies, even without seeing it, because we can see the effect it causes. We can think, we can feel, we can will. You pinch anywhere in your body, it pains, isn't it? So the more we can see the effect that the presence of the Atma causes us, the more we understand and are convinced that the Atma exists. The reason and logic is fine. Ultimately, it comes to putting faith. Just like in any business, there is an initial investment, isn't it? So now, if you ask a businessman, what is the guarantee the investment will come back? What does the businessman tell you? Have faith. Invest. Same thing in spirituality. So the idea is that at some point you have to have some faith. Everything you can't see, everything you can't understand logically. First, invest some faith. And after you invest some faith and you practice and you see some result coming, then you get conviction, right? And that kind of faith that you invest is known as reasonable faith. Once, a lot of villagers decided to pray for rain. Long drought, no rains for years together. And one particular year, the villagers were really, really miserable. They decided to come together and pray to the rain god very intensely. They all decided to have a prayer meeting, and everyone in the village came to offer the prayers. And one little girl came to the prayer meeting with an umbrella. Now, everybody looked at her and they said, "What are you doing? It hasn't rained for years. Why did you get an umbrella?" The girl said, "We are going to offer prayers, so surely it will rain." The village is amazed. This girl was the only girl who had faith that the prayers will work. Everybody else is doing it, but just mechanically, more or less. So this idea of the Atma being avyakta, invisible, it pushes us to have faith, to develop some faith. And finally, the last quality that Krishna is speaking about of the Atma is achintya. The word achintya means inconceivable. With material consciousness, with material senses, one can never realize the soul and one can never realize God. Only when we take to a spiritual process and purify our senses, only then can we realize the soul and Krishna. So purify ourselves, then realization comes. Both God and the soul cannot be conceived by material senses. This is the motivation for purification. Atah Shri Krishna Namadi na bhaved grahayam indriyet. It means that with your physical senses, you can't understand God. Many years back in the late 1800s, late 1800s, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, who was a guru of Srila Prabhupada, had a beautiful temple where one man, who's a very famous man at that time, named Madan Mohan Malviya, he came to visit him. Those who are from Calcutta and Bengal will understand, will recognize his name. So Madan Mohan Malviya was a prominent politician at that point. He came to visit Bhaktisiddhanta. And he had a lot of questions to ask Bhaktisiddhanta, spiritual questions. And when he came to meet Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, Bhaktisiddhanta was busy. So Madan Mohan Malviya, he said, "I can wait." Bhaktisiddhanta told him, "Go and wash the pots in the kitchen while you're waiting, and then I'll answer your questions." This man is a big politician, But Bhaktisiddhanta told him, "Go and wash pots in the kitchen." And this man actually went to the kitchen and started washing pots in the kitchen. He spent a few hours washing these huge pots of vessels, basically. And after a few hours of doing this intense washing, Bhaktisiddhanta then, called him. He said, "So, what were your questions?" This man said, "As I was washing the pots in the kitchen, all my questions got answered. Thank you very much. I really got answers to all my questions." He didn't have any more questions. Why? That is what purification is all about. I mean, you might sit in an AC room and hear 100 lectures, but that same realization that you will get after doing some little seva, you will not get by hearing 100 lectures. A little seva and a little hearing helps you digest that knowledge, basically. So unfortunately, a lot of people want knowledge, but they don't want to get up and do some practical service, something to purify themselves. And only when you try to purify yourself through some kind of service, through some kind of activities that may even be an inconvenience to the physical body, that is where realization comes. That is where transformation comes. That is where the understanding comes of these deeper, subtler aspects of life. You might sit and ask 100 different questions and you might do all the research you want. sitting in the biggest of institutes, but you won't get the realization that you will get by sitting on the floor of a kitchen and washing a pot for the pleasure of the deities, right? And that is what the whole idea of developing impetus to understand the inconceivable is about. So each of us have an opportunity where we can actually go ahead and develop the impetus to understand something that is inconceivable otherwise. So I'll quickly summarize the 9 characteristics of the soul that Krishna speaks about in this section of the Gita. The first characteristic he speaks about is the Atma is individual. Individual essentially means we learn the most important lesson. Do not compare yourself to somebody else. You are unique. You are the only one of that type that exists in the universe. There is nobody like you. And therefore, don't waste time comparing yourself with somebody else, because there is nobody like you ever that you can compare yourself with. The second quality of the Atma is indestructible. With this, when we focus on this quality, we develop fearlessness in our hearts. The idea is fear keeps bogging our mind when we don't understand this fact that we are indestructible. Nobody can destroy us, and nobody can destroy the Atma, and that helps us become fearless. The third characteristic of the Atma is it is eternal, and this gives us the quality of developing hope in our lives. I'm eternal. My body may be finished, but all my near and dear ones, we can prepare now and keep Krishna in the center. And the hope is that we will always be together and never be separated by the power of time. And when we are serving Krishna together in the spiritual world, that means as long as we are within this body, we must use this body to prepare ourselves for the future. The fourth characteristic of the soul is that the soul is immovable. That means it is rock steady. The more we connect with the soul, and the soul connects with Krishna, we can cultivate the quality of determination. The problem today is that we don't feel determined because we are not connected to our spiritual qualities as yet. Determination means the quality of not giving up. Hell or high waters. Then when we are strongly connected to this quality of the soul, we don't give up. The fifth characteristic is that the Atma is immeasurable. It is approximately 1/10,000, the tip of the hair. And from this, we develop the quality of humility, quality of gratitude, and of our understanding our own insignificance. I'm small, I'm nothing, but I'm simply an instrument in the hand of Krishna. If Krishna wants, he can use me to do any wonder in this world. It's not about me. It's about how God uses me to be an instrument in his hands. The sixth characteristic is the Atma is all-pervading. When one knows that life is all-pervading, life means the soul. And then we become conscious of the existence of the soul everywhere. And we develop the idea that we need to respect all lives. Conscious to respect life, learning that life is everywhere. And not just in a physical level, not just from the point of view of being non-violent on your dining table, but being non-violent in all aspects of your life and not hurting and causing pain to people. The seventh characteristic of the soul, it is unchangeable. The body is constantly changing. The world is constantly changing. Life situations are constantly changing. Life simply passes in adapting, and it leads to a tremendous amount of anxiety. The seventh quality we develop, the idea of freedom from anxiety. So when we develop this, the understanding that the Atma is unchangeable, the body is changeable, the Atma is unchangeable, we actually get a source of taking shelter. We get a source of taking shelter of something that is unchangeable within us. As soon as we learn to connect with Krishna and the fact that we are the spirit soul, we understand that understanding the idea of the changeless soul gives us a lot of freedom from anxiety. Understanding that is one place where there is no change at all. The eighth characteristic of the soul, that it is invisible, and from this we develop the idea of faith. A quality that we are urged to cultivate is the quality of faith, and that faith is based on reasoning, and it's not blind faith. And finally, the ninth characteristic of the soul is that it is inconceivable. And this ninth quality, it helps us develop the impetus for purification, as it cannot be conceived by material senses and material consciousness. We have to spiritualize our consciousness and spiritualize our senses so that it becomes an impetus to transform something material into something spiritual. These are the 9 qualities of the Atma, and these 9 qualities actually help us in understanding ourselves better, living a better quality life, and living a more fascinating life of contribution. I'll stop here. Thank you very much. The next session, next Tuesday that we're going to do is going to be the most powerful session that you'll have ever heard. Please come for it for sure. And as many people as you know, invite them to be a part of the session. We're going to discuss the art of tolerance the next time. And it's very, very powerful and very important for us to learn. We're going to discuss one verse of the Gita where Krishna speaks about the art of tolerance to all of us through that verse. And that verse is a very, very important verse of the Gita Parimani. We'll discuss that the next time. You can take up some questions or comments. If there is any questions, comments, please. So I hope the understanding of these 9 qualities of the Atma has been very interesting learning for all of y'all. And it has opened a lot of your insights about your personal lives.
Thank you, Prabhuji. A very enlightening session. And I really enjoyed every bit of it. And thanks to you for it. Only thing is I'll have to excuse myself today as I have a lecture to give now. So I'm taking up.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments, please? Please feel free to ask. You're most welcome. If there is anything, or you just want to say something, you're most welcome. Yes, Girishji.
Sorry, could you just elaborate once more on the difference between immovable and unchangeable?
Okay. You want me to elaborate more on the unchangeable aspect?
And okay. Unchangeable, yeah.
Because what were you saying? You can
immovable and unchangeable. I mean, what's the difference between
immovable and unchangeable?
Yeah.
Okay. So the idea of immovable is okay. Let me just give you a very gross example just to help you understand. Like I'm standing here, I'm sitting here, right? If somebody comes and pushes me, I'll fall off, isn't it?
Yeah.
They will push my body, but they can't push my soul.
Mm-hmm.
The push or the movable factor is the physical body, but the Atma within the body cannot be moved. So if somebody tries to move my Atma, that won't happen. That can't happen because the Atma you cannot touch it only, right? That's what the idea of immovable is. Unchangeable means if you look at our gross body, there's a lot of changes that come, right? As we grow older, the texture of our skin changes, the color of our hair changes. A lot of change that happens on an external level. But the Atma which is within us, no change happens. It is exactly the same from the birth till the person dies and it goes to the next body. There also no change happens. So it's a very, very constant thing. That's the difference between the two. They disappeared. Okay. Nagesh?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Prabhuji, what you mentioned about the verse mentioning that the size of the soul is 100 upon 100. So 100th of 100, the size, size of the human, the tip of the human hair.
Right.
So does that mean that what we call as Atma actually has got a sort of a physical dimension existence, and that verse is not exactly a sort of a metaphor. So there is an actual physical existence. Someday if we invent a microscope or something that actually can look into it, we will be able to see a soul or or something to that effect.
I'll give you some dimensions to think, differently. Like, for example, right now, if somebody passes an infrared ray in front of you, will you be able to see it? Your eye is not even capable of seeing it, even if it exists right in front of you. If there is an ultraviolet ray passing right in front of you, you can't see it. So our eyes have the ability to only see from this much range to this much range. If something is beyond it on both sides, you can't see. What are we talking about? What instrument are you talking about? The instrument you may make, but your eyes also you have to change, na? Can you change your eye? you may develop the best of instruments, but your eye has to have some capacity, right? That we can't change. So when we are limited so much, how can we talk about wanting to see everything? It's just not possible logically.
Hare Krishna. Thank you.
Yeah. Rashmi?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. I just want to make it, more understandable for me that unchangeable nature, you were talking as a seventh quality, in which what I understood is, if we understand that the Atma is unchangeable, then we can address our anxieties. So in day-to-day life, we have to make so many compromises or mold ourselves or adapt ourselves so that all our day-to-day, day-to-day things or relationships like that will go smoothly. Or sometimes we feel that no, it's not me. So it creates a kind of, disturbances that really you don't want to do it, but you have to do it. So is it like we have some swabhava of Atma and we are compromising of that? Or I want to ask that how we can balance this adaptation and transformation from within. So, thank you.
See, what is inside us brings stability to what is outside us. That's the idea that I'm talking about. So when we are very strongly connected to our inner world, you are able to deal with the outer world better. When we are very strongly understanding that the inner world is so stable, we actually manifest the same stability in our outer world. Therefore, wise people, the sages, advise us to work inside first. And then outside, things will get sorted on its own. We are doing the other way around. We're trying to sort everything outside. And then we think that someday when everything outside is sorted, then I'll focus on my spiritual life. What a sad thing to do, isn't it? So a lot of people have plans to start practicing spiritual life when they have sorted out their financial life, when they sorted out their married life, when they sorted out their children's life, when they sorted out their children's marriages, when they sorted out their children's future. After everything externally sorted out, then they think they will sort out their internal. What a wrong way of looking at life, isn't it? The spiritual life says, first you begin to sort out inside. Once you're sorted inside, everything else around you will automatically fall in place and will not disturb you. Make sense?
Thank you, Prabhuji. Thank you.
Umaji?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Yes.
So, Prabhuji, my question is, we've read that we are soul, we somewhere understand to a certain extent that we are soul. Can you provide some practical tips that we can realize this on a daily basis? Because our interaction is so much there in the external world. The moment we get up, we see ourselves in a physical body. It's difficult to actually, believe it and accept it, and even practice it for that matter else.
I'll tell you a very simple tip that will help you.
Yeah.
in the morning when we get up, ideally, every spiritualist should do this first thing in the morning when they get up. Before we start chanting the holy names, before we actually offer prayers and chant the holy names, we have to actually remind ourselves of one thing. We have to remind ourselves that I am a spirit soul, eternal servant of Krishna in this material world for a purpose. And my goal is to return back to the spiritual world. Just a simple reminder in the beginning of the day. It sets your whole day in a particular rhythm, basically. A simple reminder. It actually helps you become more conscious in your chanting also. It helps you become more conscious in your dealings also. So when you get up in the morning and you look at yourself in the mirror and you look at when you're not cognizant of the fact that there is an Atma within this physical body. When you only think of yourself as a physical body, see, when you are a physical body, the amount of responsibility that you need to carry, you need to live by, is very different from when you understand that you are Atma, which is a part and parcel of God. So a simple reminder, like today we discussed an entire 1 hour session on the fact that we are the Atma. And the moment we understand that we are the Atma, we remember we are the Atma, we naturally become more conscious of how we behave and act in this world. Because there is so much responsibility as a child of God, as a part and parcel of God. But when we just remind ourselves on a daily basis the quality of our existence changes completely. If one lecture, 1 hour of hearing has helped you change a perspective, imagine what will happen if on a daily basis we can just set a reminder for ourselves and we live life based on that thought. I hope I made sense to you.
Yes, Prabhuji. I think before sleeping also we can practice, because many times said like what you
absolutely,
remember before sleeping, you remember more deeply, consciously, subconsciously also, and then in the morning again we can repeat. Yeah.
We chant this word Kaya Vacha Manasendriyava. We chant this verse before going to sleep. It's a reminder, basically. So it's nice to learn 1 or 2 verses that can actually remind you of this thought.
Yeah. Sure, Prabhuji. Thank you, Prabhuji.
Devashiji?
Hare Krishna, Babuji. Prabhuji, I just want to understand one thing, that you said that Atma don't change, that is completely unchangeable. But we go through so many transformations, like the change of heart, and like the story you said, cruel and a mean hunter, he became a saint who cannot even harm an ant or something. Then what is that exactly that changes in us?
In psychological terms, this is called insights. Insight means that it's a thought or it's an idea that can change the way you look at yourself. That can change the way you look at your own behavior. It can change the way you look at your own actions. It can change the way you look at your own thought processes. So what we get from external sources, like say, for example, you're hearing lectures like this. From these lectures, you will get some insights. You will get some powerful ideas and thoughts. And to make that a part of you, see, everything is already there inside us. All of us are perfect human beings, are perfect souls, pure and perfect souls by nature. But somehow it's like raindrop, when the rain drops from the clouds, it is pure and perfect. But when that raindrop hits on the floor, on the mud, it becomes contaminated by the mud, right? So the raindrop is always pure. But the moment it touches mud, it becomes impure. So similarly, that same raindrop, if you again put it through a filter, the filtration process removes all that mud, and then you get access to that pure raindrop again. Similarly, the Atma is absolutely pure. But when we come into this material world, we develop so many contaminations. And when we hear lectures, when we read the Gita, when we understand the scriptures, and when we practice the chanting of the holy names of the Lord, it helps us experience purification. It's like getting into a filtration plant. And after the whole filtration, then you come out pure soul again. That's all.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Anything else? Any other questions or comments? Okay, great. Thank you very much. Very, very grateful to all of you all for being here. And hopefully all of you all are enjoying this journey of learning the Bhagavad Gita with a lot of practical application in your personal lives. Hare Krishna. See you all next week.